Hello, I'm Patrick from Patchworks, and my MAXXair fan is very squeaky and very annoying. And if you're watching this video, so is yours, I'm guessing. So I'm going to show you how to take it apart, take the motor out, clean everything up, and stop that squeak. Alright, step one obviously is to turn these four little knobs that we all know about and take off your screen. You can clean that when it's off, not a bad idea. And then there's a little Allen key to take off the fan. Doesn't need much, and that comes off. So sometimes your squeak can just be from dirt inside of this and on this center pole. So you might get away with just taking this off, using like a Q-tip to clean it out. Clean this off, some rubbing alcohol or something, put it back on. That might fix your issue. If it doesn't, which it might not, you're gonna have to take off the whole motor. It's not that hard. I'll show you how to do it. So to do that, there's two bolts here that we gotta take off. Wow, first guess. It is a size 5/16 nut. They're not super complicated. You don't need a whole wrench set to do it. You can probably just use pliers and squeeze them. But you want to loosen those off and make sure you don't lose them. Obviously, because you're going to need them back. There's also a washer with them, so make sure you don't lose that. It's going to fall. Make sure it doesn't fall under your fridge. We all know where everything goes to die. What a catch. Alright, set those two bolts aside. Like I said, it's a 5/16. Okay, once you have those two bolts off, you can pull the motor out up above the wires. You might have a zip tie holding the wires, so you might have to clip those and then just let it hang. Make sure it's hanging nice so you're not messing with the wires or anything like that. Alright, once you get this down, you can take off this little lock washer thingy-majigger. I'll put up on the screen what it's actually called and what the tool to remove it is actually called. But I don't have that tool or that name, so I just do it with pliers. Alright, so that's off, and then you're just going to need a Phillips head screwdriver. Make sure you're not twisting your wires up. And unscrewing these two bolts. It's the same bolts that those nuts came off of. They run all the way through. So it takes a little bit, and the magnet is going to grab them once they get loose. That's not a problem. Just loosen it up, pull them off. There's also little washers with these, so make sure you don't lose those. Get the other one. That's two. And then this all pulls apart. So you can pull this bottom plate off first. There's going to be a washer and like it's like a rubber washer and then a bearing. You kind of want to keep those together. You can see those inside. Set that aside and then pull off this sleeve. And again, it's very magnetic, so it's going to pull. Just be careful and you'll get it all to go. Take off that sleeve, and then you can take out this little motor as well. You don't have to be too concerned about breaking stuff. You know, it's kind of fragile, but just be careful. Touching the wires and magnets isn't going to hurt anything. At least I don't think so. I'm not an expert. This is just what I do, and I haven't broken it yet. So I don't think it will break anything. All right. Once you get to this point, you're going to clean everything. I'm going to use compressed air, duster, lint remover, compressed air. If you don't have this, you can just use a rag. I did that the first times, and then it would just get squeaky again pretty quickly. It would work for a little bit, but then it would get squeaky. Best way to get all the little dust is to use some compressed air. So we'll do all that. Again, you don't got to be too concerned. This looks kind of scary. It looks like some weird science thing. It's just magnets and wires. Don't break the wires. Don't bend the wires. Don't lose any of the little washers that are on it. Anything like that. Make sure you get that center pole clean, because that's what's going to be in the bearing, spinning and squeaking if it's not clean. Make sure both your bearings are clean on both sides. And the little silver plates, because if there's dust in them and then you put it in and then it falls and then it squeaks. So get all the dust out. And then of course this piece too that is attached. You want to make sure you don't compress the washers out of their holes and let them go flying too. Okay, so now it's all clean and all we have to do is put it back together, which again is a little bit tricky, but you can figure it out. It might take a couple tries, but you'll get it. The first thing you want to do is there's these little pieces of metal that got pushed out by a spring you'll see. You want to push those back in, and there's a little knob to push the wire around so it holds it in. And then you're going to want to get that washer that's in there out. It's just easier this way. So you have that washer. Put that washer that was up top on the top of this thing. And then you're going to put this thing back through this. This is kind of where it gets tricky. So the big notch is where that little wire flange is going to go, so that's your top. Make sure this goes in from the bottom. It's going to be magnetic. It's going to try to pull. That's okay. If it pulls the washer off, that's okay too. Once it's in there, you can put that washer back on. This is the trickiest part. Once this washer is back on top in your sleeve with the wire flange on the top, which means the long end is coming out of the bottom, you're going to push that long end against your palm to push this all out a little bit while holding the black thing. See how that's popping out like that? The magnet's going to want to pull it back. You're going to have to pop it out because you have to get those little wires off the knob once the bearing is back in place. Might take a couple tries. That's okay. Just get a good grip, push it out, put that bearing in place, and then knock those wires back off. And then let this black thing slide on. And make sure the wire flange gets into where it's supposed to go. Boom. And if you do that successfully, you're pretty much done all the hard stuff. All right. Put the bottom plate back on. There's a little notch so it can only get flush in one spot, which allows the bolts to line up when they go all the way through. And then once both plates are on, you can take your bolts, stick them back through. The magnet might try to pull them, so you got to make sure it's getting to the threads. And then tighten both of these bolts back up. Both bolts while fighting a magnet. It's not the most easy thing. There we go. But it's not impossible. Tighten these up. You want them tight. Don't over crank them. There's no need to over crank anything, but make it tight. All right. Once that's done, you can slide that little lock washer thing back on. I'm honestly not sure what it even does, but it's here, so it's got to do something. They wouldn't put it there if it doesn't do something. Oh, maybe it's like a stopper so the fan doesn't slide up too much. Either way, put that lock washer back on, and then you're pretty much there. Slide it back over, make sure your wires are staying neat and not all jammed up on each other. And get those two bolts back through. This is a good time to check and make sure your polarities are correct. If they're wrong, it won't spin. So I'm just reaching my hand up and holding the motor down. You probably don't have to, but I do anyway. And I'm going to turn it on. and just make sure it's spinning. And it is spinning, which means everything is in there lining up correctly. Once that's done, you can throw these washers and bolts back on. That's one. Tighten those up. Again, tight, but don't overcrank, especially these. It's plastic, what it's bolting to, so that will probably snap. And you don't want to do that. And also, before you put that motor back up there, it might be a good time to clean all the rest of it up there. It's kind of the most open when that motor is out. But you don't have to if you don't want to. All right, those bolts are all tightened up. We put the fan back on. Make sure that the little bolt with the Allen key is lined up with the flat part of that center pole. I think that lock washer does stop it from going. I'm a genius. Tighten this little Allen key back up. And then before you put this grate back on, you test and see if it squeaks. No squeaks. You love to hear it. Or not hear it, I guess. It is probably a good idea to let this run at high speed for a while. 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, you know, if it's not a big deal. Because that spinning will help it make sure everything is balanced and stays nice and neat. Sometimes the squeaking is because the balance is off. So let it run at full speed once you have this on. Turn those little knobbies back, and boom, you have a new MAXXair fan with no squeaks. All right, well, that's how you clean your MAXXair Fan motor and stop the squeak. If it was helpful, good. All right, well, that's how you take apart your motor and put it back together, stop that annoying squeak so you can sleep soundly. If you like these kind of videos or how-to videos or adventure videos or just things I find cool, you could subscribe and see the ones I put up in the future. If you don't want to, that's cool too. I hope this just helped. And I guess that's it. So see you next time. Bye.